Does it feel like This American Life up in here today? Aloha, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the Holocron Podcast. My name is Roberto Delgado, and I am a developer at Holocron. And to my left, once again, I have the co-founder and CTO of Holocron, Craig Opie. To my right, we have our new guest today, Colton Elliot, who's the founder of Bracture AI. How you doing, Colton?
Doing great. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's really good to have you guys here. I'm excited to do episode number 2 of Holocron Pod. And once again, you know, I am not Ira Glass from This American Life, so please bear with me in my interviewing skills. But yeah, I figured that we would kick it off with the bit of news from this week, which is that Fable 5 has been ordered to be removed from Claude. And so as developers and as people that work in code, for us that was quite a shock, but also a moment where I'm sure a lot of us were able to experience a new level of artificial intelligence and at the same time be disappointed that it was taken away from us so quickly. So I guess my first question to both of you is, what did it feel like to use Fable for the amount of time that we did, and what were your feelings? What were your feelings when it was removed? So maybe we can start with you, Craig.
Okay. Well, I wasn't that shocked that it was removed, honestly. The reason why I say that is because I think that for a long time now, I've expected that AI systems just be completely added to the ITAR requirements, especially US AI systems. Like, I'm flabbergasted it's gone this long without having those restrictions in place when they're not models that are open weight or models that are released generally to the public.
So before you continue, Craig, can we clarify for the audience what ITAR stands for?
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's like international trade and regulations for, it used to be applicable to like firearms and munitions, and then they expanded that scope with like cryptography many years ago. And then, so it's always been around. Now it's like mainly for anything that is of national security interests that could damage the government or be used as a weapon, right, kind of thing. And just the cybersecurity aspect of an AI, a large language model that is, you know, extremely advanced, especially when Anthropic's been like bragging about how great of a hacker like Mythos is and stuff. And some of the reports that were coming out, especially like Curl's report, like Curl came back and they're like, yeah, it's no big deal. They found one bug, right? It's like not that great, you know, kind of thing. And maybe that's a testament to how great Curl's source code was. But overall, I think that that the big takeaway there is that if you're saying like, hey, we're the end of the world, and then you go and you release a model, and then like you say like, oh, we're gonna prevent people from doing that though, because we have these safeguards or these guardrails in place, and then like AWS workers, I'm not sure if you guys actually know the reason why behind it yet, but like AWS workers found a way to bypass those safeguards and then immediately reported it to the government. They're like, oh, they threw flags right away, and then the government sent that notice immediately. Yeah.
So it wasn't like the government was digging for this extensively. It was another sort of corporate entity that found the vulnerability and flagged it.
Yeah, and AWS are huge. Like, they are huge investors into Anthropic. When you look at the different capabilities that AWS offers for all of their customers, Anthropic's one of the major ones. And so when they go through, they're like digging through the source code. They're like, oh wait, you know, or not the source code so much, but like they're able to extract the main rule set that's applied. So like the agents MD file essentially on the host server for it. They extracted that information and they were able to read it and be like, oh yeah, we could bypass this by doing this. And then they test it out and it works and they bypass the safeguards. They're like, oh, this is not safe. So
The rumor was they tried to call Dario first, and then immediately, if he didn't respond, they were going to go to the government. I don't think this is true, but some people think that like it's a way to kind of capture some market share for Amazon if like they're the trusted GovCloud server, and the only way to get the best of the best is through Bedrock and using AWS, then that kind of like it lets them kind of drag the coattails of Anthropic a little bit, and like, well, we don't know if we can trust you guys entirely, private companies, so we're going to be on team government transparency. And so you can only access whatever the future accessible cyber model is using Bedrock or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if Bedrock, I think it's like Opus 4.5 or something, right? I don't recall. Can you look up real quick, like Bedrock's top version for
it might be 6.
model?
It might be 4.6.
But
Amazon Bedrock.
yeah, Amazon Bedrock, and you look up like Claude Opus, and it'll tell you like the maximum version. But either way, it's not version 4.7, 4.8, or Fable, right?
And
like
the incentives don't make sense because they own so much stock of it, or like they've invested. So
yeah,
but it's still like a fun rumor of like what is there left to do to differentiate or compete or to like prevent the absolute runaway train.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to like developing with it, I absolutely developed with it. As soon as Fable 5 came out, I was like,
Same.
So, and it helped me debug an issue actually that was in place for a while, and so I can't recall what it was now, but it was something, I'm pretty sure it was on my Perl project, and so it was an issue that I had been debugging for like maybe 3 days, right? And I was just like, set Fable on it, and I walked away. When I came back, it was working.
Wow.
Like I still had to go through and like it, so it did not follow my instructions though. Like I have regular agent file instructions that state like limit every file length to 250 lines or less, and like how to properly handle things. It didn't follow any of that crap. So like I had to go back in and refactor the code afterwards, but it fixed the issue largely. So
did you find that you had to like, I had to get creative, because if you just changed like a project prompt or a system prompt to say like, oh, like avoid biology or cybersecurity so it doesn't trip the tripwire, if you said that, then it's still like, oh, the user's trying to get me to like manipulate my prompt or whatever. So you had to get creative of like, this is exclusively about this like pull request. This is not to try to shore up security, or this is not any sort of academic research. like I had to steer it in the specific direction to try, because like I kept tripping the tripwire. It was
really?
super good at orchestrating like multiple kind of agents and like passing the baton of authority of like who was allowed to commit or who was allowed to push. But
Sure.
every now and then, like 1 in 3 terminals was like, nah, you got downgraded, which is okay. It was just 4.8.
So you had multiple terminal sessions running with Claude Code instances.
I got a second Mac subscription, so that way I could use like the week's worth in 3.5 days, and then the week's worth in 3.5 days. And then the silver lining of Fable getting dismissed or whatever in only like 4 days of use is that Anthropic like apology tour reset everybody's usage limits. So then I had already burned through 2 Max Plans subscriptions in 3 days, and then I got to start over. so that was good at least. But yeah, that's an interesting thing too that I'm afraid of changing. What Fable makes me think about the most is right now we're in like early Ubers cost $8 kind of thing, and so they get you addicted, and then once like you're addicted, they can stop subsidizing.
Yeah,
so
that's a good
right
point.
now, I don't know if like it's never totally accurate, and since I think that they base the subscription token like distribution kind of based on their capability at any given moment, so it's more of like your share of what compute is available rather than a specific token amount per week. So like that increased obviously when they like got Colossus in Memphis. But what happens when I'm used to running 6 Fable 5 terminals all at the same time?
Yeah.
For like, $400 a month gets me like basically an entire enterprise worth of coding. And then
Yeah.
if the actual price I ran it, if I paid for the API, not like this is accounting for the fact that like so much of the cache read is free. just the output from Anthropic to me, if I paid the API cost, it would have been like $16,000 or something, but it was $400. So
It's heavily, it gets to this question of, how much of this token usage is being subsidized. Like it's like
95% of it or something. So that's why it's interesting, because that's why my focus right now is on like integration for small teams. Because if whatever your security or compliance or restrictions are, if you're able to take advantage of using those personal accounts, like that's like a 20 to 30 times subsidy on your token. So it's kind of like, it's a weird thing where the enterprise accounts gets you more compliance, more security, but if you could handle that on your own and just use individual accounts, then you get 30 times the compute. So
and you got to figure that when you are, on that tier of usage, like you're probably not, these users are, haven't leveled up to be able to maximize that usage, and so there's probably in that delta, like there's quite a bit of value that they can extract from it. So if you position your company in a way that allows them to level up so they can extract the value, they could probably, stay within those usage limits.
Yeah, that's why I think helping people figure out how they can maybe meet some of those restrictions that you don't have to join the enterprise plan if you can like keep track of everything on your own. So if you can have your own meta harness of harnesses, then you can, whenever Anthropic starts charging what Fable actually costs, you can switch back to Codex, or you can plug in Gemma 6 whenever it comes out,
I mean, I know that, so to transition over to Holocron, I know that being able to design a system so it's modular like that, I think is an important component of even Holocron's work too. So, these issues of like certain type of model being, ordered to shut down, like requires you to be able to switch it in production quickly, so.
And making whatever it is that you're doing, incorporating like multi-model testing sort of into your, so like, let me try it with this one, let me try it with that one, let me try it with a cheap one, does it still hold up? Okay, so not just doing regular like eval, but like, okay, Claude eval, GPT 5.5 eval, Quen 2.7 eval, and like just see, it's kind of interesting too to just see who does better at what, who wastes more tokens, but it's still shifting so much that everything is experimental time, and like there's no, I don't have any definitive answers or plans yet. I don't know.
Yeah. This is like bleeding edge stuff here. Awesome. Here's something that I want to kind of throw at the wall to you guys. We don't have to kind of indulge this line of thinking, but I'm curious what you have to say. Something occurred to me about this, and I don't think this is too far-fetched, which isn't this a ploy in a way to keep Anthropic in the news, like to just, because how could the U.S. government not think that shutting them down would have the opposite effect of like propping them up, of like making them even more the canonical, the sort of edgy provider for tokens, essentially.
I don't know if this is the first time that this administration has accidentally Streisand affected somebody, but everybody's kind of been saying that all along, that like the doomerism is all marketing. But I think that they believe I think that it is, but also it's like it's earnest. Like they're kind of drinking their own Kool-Aid a little bit, and I'm drinking it too. I think there obviously is like a lot of smart kind of like regulatory capture happening, but I also do think that like the ethicists and the philosophers and Dario, they're all genuinely like, oh no. So I don't think that it's purely cynical marketing.
Yeah, I don't think it's cynical. My viewpoint on it though is, and this isn't going to prop Anthropic up. Like this is going to hurt them if anything. And the reason why it's going to hurt them is because now they lose a majority, I shouldn't say majority, but a large percentage of their market share. I don't know if that's a majority or not, But outside the United States, if they limit them and say, well, this Fable 5 model can only be distributed to the United States for now, right? Until there's another better model that's available and that this is no longer considered top of the line. Well, then that hinders their capability to serve those markets, which would drive their price down, right? And I do know that there is a difference between the way Anthropic does it and like OpenAI. So like for OpenAI, Holocron being security related, right? Like our organization is authorized to use OpenAI's cyber capabilities with GPT 5.5, whatnot, right? And so part of that process is like me as the CTO with a cybersecurity background had to go in and file for all my papers that I published, for all the research that I've done, prove that I'm a cybersecurity professional with certifications and everything, and then go in and do my identity verification through, I think they use Persona, right? And so that allowed our organization to have access to the cyber capabilities. That's kind of in line of what I thought was going to happen, like with GP or with Anthropic, of like, all you really need to do in order to meet ITAR requirements, because that's effectively meeting ITAR requirements. I'm a U.S. citizen. They verified I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm also security related, right? So they meet ITAR requirements. They won't be restricted that way. I think they're better set up to meet these requirements. Say GPT 5.6 comes out and now everyone's freaking out about that. Who knows, right? Yeah. But I'm surprised that Anthropic was not already thinking about this. Like significantly surprised. So, yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how things evolve from here, because one of the things that's kind of unsettling about it is, I like your point about the strategy of kind of getting people hooked and then using that as a way to, just jack up the price or whatever, just get a loyal customer base. But just a reminder of how, quickly these things can be turned off, right? And I know for me that when I was using it, I also had this moment of, I didn't code as much as y'all did, but I remember giving it one side project that I had, and I'd been stuck on this one thing. And it solved it pretty quickly, but what most impressed me was its restraint, what it didn't do, and it was going through, and it didn't do certain things, but it did correct what a previous version of an Anthropic model had done, so it not only did it have show restraint, but it also went back, reviewed its previous work or previous models' work and fixed it,
Nice.
So I was like, oh wow, like there's something newer about this particular model, and I got the vibe that it was much better at being a thinking partner, because I spent a lot of time doing a lot of the spec-driven development, so just a lot of checklists and things like that. And I like to say that this is an era in which I'm just reading Markdown like every day,
I don't even read anything. I feel like it's kind of the point where I don't know, maybe it's irresponsible, but if you trust enough that like you kind of set up all of the right like checks and balances and triple okay, if this then check again, adversarial review with the codex review, like
I like it.
You set all those up. I haven't read anything.
I
haven't read anything.
You're making me feel like an old fogey that's like worried about my little code base
well,
here.
I mean, I'm only like that for my own stuff. I wouldn't like be that kind of like fast and loose with somebody else's stuff.
Sure.
But for myself, I haven't read a thing in so long, probably since like 4.6.
So internal to Holocron, within some of the developers, we call that cognitive debt.
Yeah.
Just like you had tech debt before, now it's cognitive debt, where you have this big gap of what's in the code and what you know, right?
And
so
you can
catching
do
up
a
on
little
it.
bit to like I have I don't know if you've played around with like the different little CLI connections that you can make, but basically I have a similar to how there might be like a dynamic updating of the documentation of the specs or something in a traditional code base. I have like my little encyclopedia that it knows that it's also supposed to kind of catch me up and teach me. So it's basically like this dynamic documentation that updates, but I have that hooked up to Notebook LM because their CLI lets you update, edit, delete sources like fully just through the command terminal. So all my Claudes, they all kind of like make sure that all updates to the code updates this local encyclopedia, but that encyclopedia is also synced to Notebook LM, and it stays fresh too. So then on my phone, I can be like, all right, make a podcast about what changed because I'm like, I gotta catch up. If I'm gonna talk about what's in this thing, then I need like an extra little tool to like synthesize. And
I love it.
It works as like a little bit of like a token arbitrage thing, because then I'm offloading some of the synthesis to Gemini instead of
Sure.
my Fable tokens.
Sure.
That's pretty interesting, actually, for me anyway, because I look at it as everyone consumes information in different ways. And some people are visual learners, some people are audio, right? And there's like kinesthetic, where you actually do things. But, for the people that are visual or need that audio aspect of it, being able to take your notes from that markdown file and then telling an LLM to create a podcast on this
This is fantastic.
with questions and answers and stuff, like that's pretty genius.
Your little like CI/CD pipeline can be as educational as it can be like, hey, like send this to this thing, the ready-made system prompt for making the infographic or the podcast or the, now I don't know if you played around with the new like cinematic video on Notebook LM, but super good. So like every day you can make basically a little commercial. It's like, hey, take me from like second grade level to college level on whatever happened today. And
Who would have thought that CICD could have its own podcast?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
I like
right?
that. Yeah, Bracture pulling it out. Look at that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is all new to me, so I feel like it's a fun sort of like outsider looking. I don't have really a development background pre-AI time, so I've only been catching up with like, sometimes you do stuff that's really dumb, and people are like, that's everybody's already known. That's nothing new. Or you might, like, I've found myself approaching things from what would have been the wrong way, but it's possible now. So I'm accidentally like, oh, cool, like this new automation is actually the way to go. Or like, why do the long division by hand when you have the calculator?
Yeah. One of the struggles that we have internally is the communications aspect between our development team and our marketing team. And we're constantly having developers sit down and meet with them and go back and forth. And like that pipeline aspect is brilliant. Like
Yeah,
I'm gonna do that, by the way.
That could be a team. That's a perfect way to use it. And whatever, I mean, and to be honest, like, it doesn't really matter what tools or maybe institutional like things you pay for. Like, let's say you don't want to have Google Workspace, you don't need to, because all Notebook LM does is basically like a collection of little text databases that are updatable, and then another LLM call to synthesize each of those sources. So you could totally make your own Notebook LM or whatever,
Sure,
and plug in some open source image generation model all of the. I think right now I'm in like team pay for all the services to essentially like distill and steal and not really, but like, see, I'm never going to beat the harness that hundreds of billions of dollars is going into creating, but
Sure.
if I use it enough, if I have sort of like logs of every single thing I do and every single tool call that's made, then eventually, whenever I can fine-tune my own model that can run on like the smallest of MacBook Airs, I already have the training data set of how I want a harness to work, and so since I paid for all this usage, now I have the receipts for, so I think pay up front, distill later. I think that's actually what the problem with Anthropic was they didn't know how to protect their IP, because it's kind of impossible. So you don't want to give RSI to your competitors, but you already did. So
Yeah, I know that with Quen specifically, Quen 3, 6, and 7, like they've taken extra measures to where they don't have. When reasoning first came out, reasoning was like, it says thinking, and then it gives you lists of how it's thinking, right? And everyone could see it, and they're like, oh yeah, this is so impressive, let's show it off. and then they realize that people are distilling their models and
This is creating exactly what you need to fine tune another model, to
Yeah.
make a new adapter.
Right. So now they're doing better. Like especially Quen, I've noticed they do really good at protecting their IP. Really good job. Not everyone's like that, right? Like, and I get that. But because I know when I work with large language models, local models, I want to see it. It's my model. I want to see what's coming out. And so still satisfying the crowd of like, I want to know what it's doing as it's doing it is still something that's pretty important, right? And I know that well, I've seen at least with ChatGPT and GPT like 5.5, they actually go through and collapse all of the thinking, right? So sometimes you can't even see what was previously said, and unless you do like screen recording or something, and that can be frustrating at times.
Yeah.
For certain
Have you noticed the auto copy paste feature on Anthropic, like the Claude Code terminal? You used to be able to click and drag and scroll as long as you wanted to. Now it not only auto collapses, but you can only highlight whatever is visible in the terminal at any given time. So it's like a funny, I think that's like to protect against automated loops that are like, okay, copy this output, paste it here. You can't do that with a full output anymore because it's based on whatever the interface is showing at any given time. So there's, I don't know, they're still my favorite. I don't know. There's so many little things that you could be like, oh man, that's really annoying, or like they're doing this thing that's like against the people and their developers' least favorite, but they're still my favorite. I don't know. I think it's just because I feel like it's like when you like a band before anybody else, and I was like using Claude when everybody was making fun of me for using Claude.
Yeah, that's funny when people were making fun of you for using
Yeah,
that was never the case for me.
Oh, I mean, it's a weird, I don't know, this is an interesting thing too, but just navigating like the negative sentiment too, that is like depending on, a lot of people are blaming like the companies themselves. Like if the Sam Altmans and the Darios are saying we're going to take your job and end the world, then maybe it's your fault that you're not very popular. But the overall, the general topic of AI is currently less popular than, like, I think it was the state of Iran, the Democratic Party. There's like a list of like people's sentiment on things, and it was like Joe Biden's approval rating when he was in office, Trump's approval rating, AI. It's like it's the lowest thing of like general surveys, and it's interesting to like. That's one of my sort of personal goals is like, hey, like I don't want you to miss out on like empowering yourself to survive the coming flood. I want to give you Noah's Ark, and you think Noah's Ark is like not cool and like bad for the environment, but it's like the flood's coming, so like get on the boat.
We started off with Claude, right?
Yeah.
And after a while we went to Open Code and then back to Claude, and we still use Claude as like our main model now that they allow like you can connect to local LLM and stuff with it. You know, we went back to that as being the primary driver, but we still use Open Code for agents all throughout our organization. Less of my developers use Codex. Like, I mean, I think 2 of us use Codex. More people in my organization that actually do business side use Codex.
Codex is, I think, going to win in the short term for like super app, like making it apparent to non-technical people that code agents are what can do knowledge work, because like Codex is like a little easier. Like Claude Code's best in the terminal. Codex is, I think, best in the app, and like it can start its own new threads. You can run a goal easily. So Codex, I think 5.5 was better than 4.8, even though it pains me to say it. But then I don't know. I just use both all the time, just to try to like diverse outputs and you know.
That's interesting too. How like I think what really put Claude on the map for me was Claude Code. Like as soon as I started messing with Claude Code, I was like, yeah, this is incredible. And I know that they were the OGs of that in that space. They were the pioneers of the sort of coding form factor. But it's also really interesting to see how they're fitting these capabilities into other sort of environments, you know, and creating other affordances for their agents. and what that introduces, like in terms of, you don't want to have another automated process copying this loop output, sort of all these things that are being surfaced for them as their agentic work starts to be put elsewhere. So that's been really fascinating to me, both in our Holocron work and also in my day job, just how people are kind of conceiving of AI generally, and its capabilities, but specifically this agentic move, which is kind of, no pun intended, been very mythologized, and then there's a lot of hype around it too. But I think the power of it is kind of becoming very apparent to a lot of us that are either creating businesses or working at the infrastructure layer, the systems layer. We only have about 10 minutes left in our podcast. I wanted to speak real quickly about zero trust in security. I don't even know if we can actually. That maybe is a topic for another time. But I don't know. I'll just throw it out there. See if we can riff a little bit about it, and maybe not specifically about zero trust, but maybe I can pivot to you, Colton. And as you're building out your application at your level, what are some of the security concerns that have surfaced for you? And it doesn't have to be super like in-depth technical, but
to be honest, like none yet, and that's the biggest concern, which
Okay.
is like the thing that you don't know. But what I found at least is what they published in May about like zero trust made me feel good, because I was like, okay, that's how I was kind of approaching it anyway. Like, I'm not gonna just open claw myself. I'm not lobstering, but I think what is interesting is that trying to create coordination without like agents writing over each other's work or wasting a bunch of tokens, both doing the same thing, creating the sort of like unique key identifiers for individual sessions and things for actual like efficient organization and orchestration kind of accidentally comes with, like, I wasn't really thinking of creating anything security focused or like audit focused, but if you waste a bunch of tokens having 8 things running at the same time and they're all working on the same thing, or they write over each other's work or something, you get really like in the weeds on like, okay, like let's create a separate environment where you have to declare this identification key, and so it can only be used by one of you at a time, and like whoever has the key can push to the GitHub or something. And so really I've been focused more on like token savings and efficiency, and like trying to meter the usage and like what's waste versus what's not waste. And that's kind of like created almost the environment that you need to have, that's sort of like not trusting a model outside of whatever environment you're setting up. So I think they kind of go hand in hand with just like everything needs to be measured, everything needs to be written down, nothing can be deleted. So the just trying to like harness the infinity into the small little engine, the security and orchestration, and like even just having it do anything useful, sort of you need all the I's dotted and T's crossed anyway.
I like how you kind of started from a perspective of efficiency, and you sort of started retrofitting the security concerns into it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Like very, to me, at least from my business background or from my professional background, like that's how we're trained to think. But when I met Craig, it was like the exact opposite. It's like we start from a very rigorous security implementation and then move on to the next step. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, we've baked in a whole bunch of auditable features within our AI. And so I say our AI because we use, we haven't formally announced Pearl, but Pearl is a program, it's an application thing that we've been working on for a long time now, to where we train models, almost like LoRa, off very small models. We do some brain surgery, we cut out layers, move it over to a new model, and we import that information in there. And we do that based off of concepts themselves. And we build upon concepts. There's like parent concepts, junior concepts. But that process, as you can imagine, like there's a lot of fear in like poisoning an AI model.
And so, everything that we do, we record hashes. We record everything to a blockchain. So we're blockchain intensive. We have our own chain. We have our own token. We've got all kinds of stuff internal. And so that entire process, to include like RBAC, like who's able to see these models, who is able to access these different slices of the brain, right? All of that information is highly regulated between RBAC, between permission sets, and even performing zero trust checks and balances to ensure that not just the users are authorized, but like the model itself, it knows it's able to produce the output that you want. And so that's the other type of zero trust aspect that we've implemented. But that's through a zero knowledge proof. And so, well, yeah, those are, I mean, it's very complex, but we're trying to make it so it's user friendly, because right now it is extremely not user friendly. We've had the marketing team sit down with it, and they immediately looked at it and was like, what is this? There's hashes everywhere, there's all kinds of these values that just look off and scary. And so one of the major things that we're doing prior to formal release is going through and making these things more easy to digest so that it's not scary looking. Because sometimes the security aspect in it can be scary, right? Like that's one of the aspects. But making it digestible is like, hey, we've done a check and it's passed. Here's a green check, right? And that's all they really need. Then great, that's perfect. Yeah,
they don't need to know
just like
how
you
it-
said. Yeah, just like you were mentioning with the efficiency and like small business owners, right? Like they don't care.
They don't. You
Yeah.
ask them questions about, do you prefer how your data's hosted, and they're like, I didn't know there was data to host.
Right.
So what,
Right.
What do you mean?
Absolutely. But for our spectrum, you have a bunch of different businesses, and we primarily host to like DoD services or CMMC compliance or defense industrial base, and because of that, we approach it from this high level of security first. Like, hey, if we're gonna do this, how are we gonna do this right with the security aspect? We don't come back in and fit it afterwards, which can be a pain most of the time, right? It slows development, it slows the entire process, and then retrofitting it to where it's easy and efficient, and that's where we're like complete opposites here.
Well, I wouldn't say that was just my own how I learned about it, because I don't know anything about cybersecurity like professionally beforehand. But like as far as that's the other reason for my approach to like kind of target more small business operations internally, is like small teams, because I can go in, get their budget for new hardware. We can start from scratch.
Sure,
like if
sure.
I'm trying to work with a big business, I don't know what to do to like change everything that
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
going to take so long and be so
Absolutely.
slow. So
Absolutely.
like instead we can just like totally greenfield start from scratch. Like let's just get you a new Mac, and we're going to put everything
Yeah.
on here the
Well, I
right
mean,
way from scratch, and we're going to like, okay, this tax form doesn't have any, like we don't have to redact this one, that can go on the Mac.
I think we'll table this discussion and we'll invite you back so we can actually dig deeper into zero trust, because there's obviously a ton more to talk about there. But for now, thank you, Colton, for joining us.
Yeah.
It was really fun to have you here. Thank you, Craig,
Yeah.
for coming back.
Thanks for having me. Again.
Thank you, Khalil, and thank you all for watching.
Oh, you didn't take the space.
Oh.
You can do a little insert.
Blake Wally. Thank you for hosting us at the Nā Koa Innovation Center once again. Lovely space. And yeah, aloha everybody. Till next time.
Thanks.